Rebecca, a talented graphic designer in her late 20s, stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting the necklace her mother had gifted her. She was used to solving creative challenges at work, but tonight, as she faced the reality of an arranged marriage, her hands trembled slightly. How could she commit her life to someone she barely knew? Her father, Gregory, a pragmatic businessman, had made the decision to marry her off to Christopher, the reserved yet highly accomplished son of a prominent family. Gregory's design firm was struggling, and this union was presented as the perfect solution, a merger that would save the company. Rebecca had seen Christopher only in photographs and heard whispers of his reputation. A deaf-mute photographer, he was known for capturing the world's beauty through his lens, even without hearing a sound. Yet, to Rebecca, he was a stranger with whom she was expected to share her life. That evening, a formal dinner was set to introduce them. Rebecca's heart was heavy with doubts and apprehensions. She whispered to herself, "How can this work?" But what Rebecca didn't know was that one small gesture from Christopher during that dinner would set the foundation for a connection deeper than words. The dining room in Rebecca's family home was transformed into an elegant setting for the evening. The table was adorned with their finest china, silverware glimmering under the chandelier's soft light. Gregory, ever the commanding host, ensured every detail was perfect for the arrival of Christopher and his family. Rebecca descended the stairs, her navy blue dress flowing gracefully with each step. Her mother, Eleanor, whispered encouragement, but Rebecca's mind was clouded with uncertainty. She wasn't sure what to expect. When the Taylors arrived, Christopher entered the room with a quiet confidence. His dark brown eyes, deep and observant, immediately found Rebecca's. He was dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, but it was his calm yet intense gaze that left her momentarily breathless. Gregory introduced them. "Rebecca, this is Christopher, your future husband." Christopher stepped forward, but instead of offering his hand, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card. With a gentle smile, he handed it to Rebecca. As her eyes scanned the words, a warmth spread through her chest, momentarily easing her doubts. The card read, "Meeting you is an honor, Rebecca. Your passion for design is even more beautiful than I imagined." Rebecca's cheeks flushed as she read the words. She glanced up to see Christopher watching her with a warm, sincere expression. It was a simple gesture, yet it felt profound. A silent introduction that carried more depth than she had expected. As the evening continued, Christopher communicated through a sign language interpreter, his hands moving gracefully, his responses thoughtful and precise. Rebecca found herself drawn to his quiet strength and the intelligence in his expressions. By the end of the dinner, the apprehension she had felt earlier began to fade, replaced by curiosity. For the first time, Rebecca wondered if there might be more to Christopher than she had allowed herself to see. In the days following their first meeting, Rebecca found herself reflecting on Christopher's presence. There was something about the sincerity in his gaze and the elegance of his gestures that lingered in her mind. Determined to bridge the gap between them, Rebecca made a decision that surprised both her parents and the Taylors. She enrolled in an intensive sign language course. "You don't need to go through all this trouble," Gregory remarked one morning at breakfast, barely looking up from his newspaper. "The Taylors always provide interpreters." Rebecca stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "I don't want to rely on intermediaries, Dad. If Christopher and I are to build a life together, I need to communicate with him directly. It would be like living through translations forever." Gregory was taken aback, but didn't argue further. Rebecca's efforts didn't go unnoticed. During their subsequent chaperone meetings, Christopher displayed remarkable patience, often pausing mid-conversation to guide her hands into the correct signs. Every mistake was met with a gentle smile that encouraged her to keep trying. Though her signs were initially hesitant and clumsy, he encouraged her with warm smiles and gentle corrections. One afternoon, as they walked through the Taylors' orchid garden, a lush haven of vibrant flowers and winding paths, Rebecca mustered the courage to sign her first full sentence. "The garden is very beautiful." Christopher's eyes lit up with joy. He responded with deliberate gestures, ensuring she could follow. My mother dedicates a lot of time to this place. Each flower has a story. Stopping near a cluster of purple orchids, he began to tell a story through signs, with Mrs. Clara, the family's interpreter, quietly translating from a distance. These orchids were planted the day I was born. My mother says they are special because, like me, they found their own way to express themselves in the world. Rebecca felt her eyes sting with unshed tears. She hesitated, then signed a phrase she had recently learned. They are perfect just the way they are. Christopher's smile at that moment melted away her lingering insecurities. As they continued their walk, Rebecca realized that the silence she once feared now seemed to hold a comforting rhythm. Their conversations, though slow and unspoken, began to reveal a depth of understanding she hadn't anticipated. For the first time, Rebecca felt a flicker of hope, a belief that perhaps this marriage wouldn't just be an arrangement, but something far more meaningful. One sunny afternoon, Rebecca found herself exploring the Taylor's estate while waiting for Christopher. Wandering through the quiet halls, she stumbled upon a door slightly ajar. Inside, sunlight streamed through large windows, illuminating a photography studio filled with cameras, tripods, and prints. Curiosity drew her in. The walls were adorned with black and white photographs, and a large table displayed dozens of pictures. As Rebecca leaned in to examine them, her breath caught. She was in the photos. In one, she was laughing with colleagues at a design fair. In another, she was helping an elderly woman across the street. Each picture captured her in candid, unguarded moments. Her essence, rather than a posed facade. "What is this?" she whispered aloud. At that moment, Christopher entered the studio. He paused, his expression shifting to a mix of apprehension and vulnerability as he noticed her holding one of the photos. Rebecca turned to him, her voice soft but firm. "You've been watching me? For years?" Christopher reached for his notebook, his hands trembling slightly. He wrote, "I wanted to capture genuine moments of you being yourself. I admired your kindness and creativity from afar." Rebecca read the words, her emotions swirling. "Why didn't you ever approach me?" she asked. He wrote again, "I didn't want to interfere with your life. I wanted you to choose your own path, free from any expectations or history between our families." Rebecca felt a wave of emotion crash over her. All this time, he'd observed her not out of obsession, but out of admiration and respect. "Christopher," she began, her voice unsteady, "you've been seeing me in ways I didn't even see myself." Christopher's lips parted slightly as if to speak, but he caught himself, his eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and vulnerability. Christopher hesitated, then took another photo from the table. It was of Rebecca in the Taylor's orchid garden, her face bathed in sunlight, her expression serene. Beneath the photo, he had written, "The moment I realized you were beginning to feel at home in my world." Rebecca felt tears spill over. For the first time, she truly saw Christopher, not as the stranger she had been pressured to marry, but as someone who had quietly and patiently cherished her. Without thinking, she signed, "Thank you for waiting for me." Christopher's smile in response was radiant, and Rebecca realized that her fears were giving way to something deeper, a connection that transcended words. The day of the wedding arrived, bringing with it a calm Rebecca hadn't expected. The garden at the Taylor's estate had been transformed into a breathtaking venue, adorned with white roses and vibrant purple orchids. The air buzzed with excitement as friends and family gathered to witness the union. Rebecca stood in her dressing room, adjusting her veil in the mirror. Her mother, Eleanor, whispered, "You look stunning, my dear." Rebecca smiled softly. "I feel ready, Mom. This isn't just an arrangement anymore. It's the start of something real." When it was time, Rebecca walked down the aisle on her father Gregory's arm. But as her eyes locked with Christopher's, waiting for her beneath the floral arch, the crowd seemed to fade away. His smile was warm, his dark eyes filled with a mixture of joy and quiet strength. The ceremony began, and when it was time for the vows, Rebecca surprised everyone. Handing her bouquet to Eleanor, she turned to Christopher and began signing. "Christopher, When we met, I thought silence would be a barrier, but you've shown me that it can be the most beautiful connection. I promise to love you with every gesture, every look, and every beat of my heart." Christopher's hands trembled as he responded with his own vows, his expressions brimming with emotion. A murmur of admiration swept through the audience, and even Rebecca's father, often so stoic, discreetly wiped away a tear. "Rebecca, you turned my silence into a language of love. I promise to listen to you, support you, and build a life where our silence becomes our strongest voice." The officiant, visibly moved, announced, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Christopher and Rebecca leaned in for their first kiss as husband and wife, sealing their vows with a tenderness that brought tears to many eyes. The applause was thunderous, and as they walked back down the aisle together, Rebecca felt a peace she had never known. This wasn't just a merger or a compromise. It was the beginning of a love story uniquely theirs. After the wedding, Rebecca and Christopher began their new life together in a charming house just outside the city. Rebecca had designed the renovation herself, ensuring it reflected their shared passions. Large open spaces let natural light flood in, and a cozy photography studio was tucked away on the second floor for Christopher. Their routines blended seamlessly. Rebecca spent her mornings sketching new designs while Christopher worked on his photography projects. In the evenings, they often sat together, Rebecca refining her sign language and Christopher teaching her the art of capturing moments through a camera lens. One evening after dinner, Rebecca felt a wave of nervous excitement as she approached Christopher. She had been holding onto a secret for days, waiting for the right moment. Sitting beside him on the couch, she took his hands in hers and signed slowly, her fingers trembling slightly. "Christopher, we're going to have a baby." Christopher's eyes widened in surprise, his expression shifting to pure joy. Without hesitation, he pulled Rebecca into an embrace, his silent tears of happiness soaking into her shoulder. When he finally pulled back, he sighed quickly, his hands moving with excitement. "Are you sure? When did you find out?" Rebecca nodded, smiling through her own tears. "A few days ago. I wanted to be certain before telling you." Christopher placed his hands gently on her belly, his expression softening. "Our baby. I can't wait to meet them." Rebecca smiled, remembering the quiet moments in the garden when their connection first began to bloom, and now it was growing into something even more profound. In the weeks that followed, their bond grew even stronger. Christopher often placed his hands on Rebecca's growing belly, feeling the tiny movements within. He started taking candid photos of their life together, Rebecca sketching in the sunlight, her belly gently rounded, or the two of them laughing in the kitchen. These quiet, joyful moments reminded them both of how far they had come and the new chapter they were about to begin. As Rebecca and Christopher prepared for their baby's arrival, their love grew in ways they hadn't anticipated. Christopher began documenting their journey through photography, capturing moments that spoke of their unique connection. One photo in particular stood out to Rebecca, a shot of her sitting on their porch, her hands resting on her growing belly, bathed in the golden light of a sunset. Beneath it, Christopher had written, "The start of a new chapter." When their daughter Lila was born, it was a moment of pure joy. Christopher held her tiny hand, his face lighting up with wonder as he felt her delicate fingers grip his. Rebecca, exhausted but smiling, whispered to him, "She's perfect, just like her father." In the months that followed, their home became a place of discovery and growth. Lila grew accustomed to her father's silent world and her mother's gentle voice. Rebecca sang lullabies at night, while Christopher signed stories to their daughter during the day. As Lila grew older, it became clear she was a bridge between their worlds. At just 3 years old, she switched effortlessly between signing and speaking. One afternoon, she looked up at Rebecca and Christopher, her hands moving confidently as she signed. "Our family is special. We have 2 ways to say I love you." Rebecca's heart swelled with pride. Christopher, overcome with emotion, pulled Lila into his arms. Their daughter had not only embraced their unique dynamic, but was thriving within it. As the years passed, Christopher's photography began to reflect his new perspective. His favorite subjects became his wife and daughter, silent moments filled with love, laughter, and understanding. Rebecca often reflected on how their story had begun with an arrangement but transformed into something extraordinary. It was a love that needed no words, a bond that grew stronger through shared silence and understanding. Under a canopy of stars one evening, Rebecca signed to Christopher, "Our love doesn't just break barriers. It creates something entirely new." Christopher smiled, his eyes full of gratitude, as he replied, "And it will echo forever." Rebecca and Christopher's journey is a testament to the power of love, understanding, and breaking barriers. If their inspiring story moved you, don't forget to like this video and share it. Subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt tales of resilience, connection, and love that transcends the ordinary.